In the world now. Now it's final 2 weeks before the U.S. presidential election. Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are making last-minute push to secure a seat in the White House as they continue campaigns, especially in swing states. According to a tracker maintained by the University of Florida, nearly 17 million persons have taken part in early voting schemes, which are widely available in majority of U.S. states. Democrats and older people are more likely to vote early, either in person or via mail-in ballots. The number of persons who vote early has steadily increased across the U.S., especially since 2020 due to COVID-19. Now, President Emeritus of the Corporate Council on Africa, Stephen Hayes, joins me on the World Now for more insight. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Hayes. As we head into one of the most pivotal U.S. elections in modern history, the stakes couldn't be higher, with issues like economic inequality, foreign policy, climate change, and immigration policy on the line. Many see this election as a referendum on the direction of American democracy itself. Could you share your perspective on what you believe are the most critical issues at play in this election and how these will shape the future of both the U.S. and global politics?
Very frankly, I think you hit the most crucial issues. It is a question of the future of American democracy to me. I think that it's a matter of which directions we go. Clearly, the Republicans, or I should say Trump and his followers, perhaps, are wanting a far less democratic, a more autocratic regime, and that's going to change the course of world history, very frankly. So I think that global history is at stake in this, but certainly U.S. history and the future of the United States is. The key issues, and I understand both sides on this. I think that both sides have legitimate grievances. I think that one side, particularly the populist view on Trump, is that they have felt degraded at times. They have felt left out of the system. They're angry. And there are some very basic issues, such as the economy. Food is becoming far more expensive in the grocery store. I've experienced that as well. And it's just simply a lot of anger, not a lot of reason on that. On the Democrat side, I think it's more of a progressive, and somehow we've turned a very good positive word into something negative, but the progressive view has left others behind.
Right, interesting perspective. But if you look at it, both candidates seem to be playing to their respective bases with heightened rhetoric. For instance, Kamala Harris has doubled down on progressive social policies, while Donald Trump continues to push populist and national themes. How is this polarization playing out in Michigan, for instance, where voters have swung in different directions in recent elections?
The swing states, Michigan being one of them, is very interesting, not only because it's very clear that they're going to determine the fate of the election, but there's also not in each, but most of the swing states, there's also a Senate race going. So that will determine the fate of the Senate, whether the Republicans or the Democrats are running the Senate. And so if there were a U.S. president and the House of Representatives and a Senate that was all of one party, particularly the Republicans in this case, then it's going to give almost a carte blanche for a major change in directions of foreign policy, economic policy, human rights, I think, too, should be added in this country. So Michigan is going to be very, very important. But it's not simply the race between the two candidates. It's what happens in the Senate race as well. Interestingly, in the Senate race, the Democratic senators are separating themselves slightly from Harris, which to me is not a good sign. It's not a vote of confidence in Harris, but we'll just have to see in roughly 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, that's right. So, and then we'll definitely see how that plays out. Just few weeks, we'll say, or a few days. But recently, if you look at Elon Musk's position, he's actually made headlines by announcing his offer of $1 million daily to registered voters, sparking intense legal and ethical debates. So what Musk positions this as a philanthropic effort. Critics argue differently that it may run afoul of campaign finance laws or create undue influence. But do you think Mr. Musk's proposal crosses the line? And how do we differentiate between incentivizing voter turnout and potentially manipulating the democratic process?
Well, I think it clearly does manipulate the process. I have often said for at least 20 years that I wouldn't wish American-style democracy on anyone because it's increasingly about money, and Musk has simply thrown away all pretenses. I think it's obscene. I think it's an insult to people anyway for him to think that all he has to do is pay people and they'll give up their principles. Unfortunately, it's a lesson that is right in many cases, and it's worked for Trump, it's worked for Musk, and I think there should be a clear law against this. But even if it violates principles, and I think it does, and legal principles, it's not going to matter because by the time we reach the courts, the election's over.
Interesting stuff. We'll definitely see how all of these, pan out at the end of the day, because it's a very, very critical conversation that we're definitely having. Corporate Counsel on Affairs, Stephen Hayes, thank you so much for your insight on this. Thank you.
Thank you, and the privilege as always. Thank you.
All right.